It is dinner time, you have a package of tofu, and you're not quite sure what to do with it. Well, you're in the right place because today I'm about to show you 10 of the best tofu dinner recipes. For number one, we have a tofu peanut sauce recipe. First things first, we gotta press the tofu so that we can take out all of that excess liquid and so it can absorb all of these delicious sauces. Again, there's many ways to press your tofu. I just like these little contraptions because it makes my life easier. But of course, you can take just a cutting board and then a towel on the bottom, a towel on top, and place another cutting board on top, and then a 10-pound weight, or you can buy a tofu press. And you can feel a little fancy with that tofu press. All right, let's let that sit. While the tofu is pressing, let's make the rice. 5 cups for my family of 8. I always rinse my rice first before I add water. 5 cups of rice will be about 7 cups of water because I've rinsed it, it's already pretty wet. High pressure, 23 minutes in the Instant Pot. Next, we'll make the marinade for the tofu. So this is what the tofu will marinate in and then cook in. So it's 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. This is totally optional. You do not have to use the oil, but you can use 1 tablespoon of sesame oil just to bring in more flavor. It's the only oil I tend to use because of the flavors that it brings in. We'll do 1 tablespoon of fresh ginger. I'm not even gonna peel the ginger this time. Grate it here. Remember, it is totally edible, all parts of that ginger. It's the only thing I use my cheese grater for these days is grating ginger. We'll do 1 clove minced garlic. We'll mix all of that together. And now let's cut our tofu. We'll drain the liquid. Now there's many different ways to cut your tofu and you can do the typical cubes. Today I'm going to do more of like a square. So we'll just cut the tofu in half and then thin slices. See all of that texture? And let's marinate the tofu. Let's get it so both sides, it instantly absorbs so much of that. It soaked all of that up. And so if you are using the frozen tofu like I am, you may need to add an extra little bit of soy sauce and vinegar just to give more of that sauce because it's soaking it up so fast, just like a sponge. Next, we'll get the veggies ready. So this is just frozen broccoli. Take the broccoli, spread it out, and then add your seasonings as desired. I always love garlic powder, onion powder, salt. This is light salt. I'm pretty generous on the salt, knowing that this is also light salt, so it's gonna be less in sodium. And finally, I love the taste of nutritional yeast on my broccoli, but this is optional. We'll set the oven to 450, and even while it's preheating, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in there. Since this is frozen, we wanna give it some time to thaw out. That'll take anywhere between 15 to 20 to even 30 minutes. I always just check on it and make sure that it's crispy the way I like it. Next up, we'll take about 1 to 2 tablespoons of either cornstarch or arrowroot powder. And I'm gonna place it just on a baking dish. You can use any type of plate for this. You wanna spread out the cornstarch or arrowroot powder so it's nice and even. And then we'll take the tofu and just make sure that it's nice and coated in that cornstarch. This is why I like the bigger tofu pieces. It makes this go a lot faster. And maybe I should have worn an apron. I'm gonna pour the sauce over it all, whatever's left over, and then we'll put it in at 400 for 10 minutes to start. Now it is time for the peanut sauce. So this is a 1/2 of a cup of peanut butter. I'm actually doubling the recipe because I love the sauce and we're making things saucy. Then it will be 1/4 a cup of soy sauce. Of course, you can use tamari or any gluten-free version if you need to. 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then optional, but you can do anywhere between 2 to 4 teaspoons of sesame oil. Again, this is optional, but if you like the flavor, it does add some flavor. Then you'll add 1/4 a cup of hot water, and that will help to mix everything together. And then let's stir. Obviously, if you have a blender, that's ideal. This will make everything go easier, but you can definitely do this by hand. Okay, I'm checking on the tofu. The ones on the edge are about done, but the ones in the middle could use a little more time. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes. Tofu is now done. It took about 15 minutes on 400. It's nice and crispy. Look at that, so yummy. Broccoli is now done. You can see it just got a little crispy. It's perfect. Let's put it all together. So we added the rice and the broccoli. And we'll add the tofu, and then we'll drizzle that delicious peanut sauce over. You can also add some sweet chili sauce. This tofu with the peanut sauce, it is so good. I love the texture of that pre-frozen tofu. It's nice and crispy. It's so good on its own, but then you add the peanut sauce on top of it. Holy cow. Oh my gosh, it's yummy. You need to try this one. So saucy. Really good. Number 2 is orange tofu. This one is so good. You'll start by cooking brown rice. I just put mine in the Instant Pot. If you can find super firm tofu, that's amazing. Then you don't have to press it, but extra firm or even just firm, you'll definitely want to press first. I bought this tofu press off of Amazon and it is linked below, and something that is worthwhile investing if you feel like you are going to be making tofu more often. Again, we're in tofu 201 right now, so we're gonna use the more advanced techniques like this press. Perfect. And I'll let that sit for a couple minutes. While we wait for the tofu to be pressed, we'll add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, I like to use light salt. 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and then 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And we'll mix all of that together. And we'll take our tofu out of the press. You'll drain all the extra liquid and take it out. Okay, let's cube it in the typical cubed tofu fashion. I used to think tofu was disgusting, especially like this cubed. Oh, I would never have tried it. But over time, it's amazing how your taste buds change. And when you're willing to try new things, I actually love it now. But it definitely takes some getting used to. And you have to have it cooked right, which is what I'm showing you today. These perfect little squares. And then we'll place the tofu in the cornstarch. Well, let's mix that around. And I'll place it in my air fryer, nice and spread out evenly. And we'll put it in at 400 for about 10 minutes. And we'll check on it after the first 10 minutes. While the tofu is cooking, let's make the sauce. We'll add 1/2 cup of the orange juice concentrate and 1/2 cup of water. We want about 1/2 tablespoon of grated fresh ginger root. Then we'll add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. Add 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. You can also use white vinegar, and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And then we'll whisk in 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is about all I have left. We'll whisk that in. Once that's nice and incorporated, we will turn on the heat. All right, let's turn on that heat. And then it will come to a boil to thicken up. That is nice and thick. Look at that. I added an additional 10 minutes to the tofu, but I think it is done now. So it's about 15 minutes total. If you're in a hurry, the 10 minutes would probably be fine, honestly. Look at that, that's perfect. Nice and crispy is what you want. Okay, let's add the tofu to the sauce. We'll mix that around. I'm so excited to try this. I know it's a little hot, but I love the flavor of orange chicken. And so the orange tofu is just as good. That sauce is what makes this so yummy. And as long as you can get past the tofu texture, honestly, you'll love it too. The tofu is perfectly crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside. It's a really, really yummy dish. Just gonna try it. It's hot. It's hot. Try this one out for sure. Number 3 is a tofu caprese sandwich. This is a favorite. I'm using super firm tofu so I don't have to press it. We'll just pat it dry and we'll just go ahead and slice it about the size of our sandwiches. Not too thick, not too thin, about 4 for a block. Place these slices either on a pan or inside your air fryer, and then we'll season them just slightly. I'm gonna just quickly spray the tofu with some cooking spray, and that makes it so it crisps up really well in the air fryer or the oven. And then I'll add some Italian seasoning and some salt. And then I'll do it again on the other side. All right, there we go. We'll air fry this for 10 minutes at 400. Our mozzarella cheese is done. And by mozzarella, I mean tofu. While the tofu was cooking, I toasted up part of a ciabatta baguette, and we'll use that to assemble the sandwich. Now, every good caprese sandwich comes with some yummy pesto, and today I'm going the easy way out, and I just bought this pesto from Trader Joe's. It's vegan, and it is delicious. We'll take the pesto and spread it on both ends of our sandwich bread. Then we'll add our tofu and tomatoes. If you want to go extra, you can also add in some sun-dried tomatoes. I found this oil-free version of sun-dried tomatoes at Trader Joe's, and I was so happy. You can add just a little extra flavor here. And we'll add some basil
You can also add some arugula as well. And then the key ingredient, balsamic glaze. It makes all the difference. So we're just gonna glaze over that tofu, our balsamic glaze, and then put our sandwich together. Yum, look at that, looks so good. I am excited for this. Packed with flavor, super delicious. The balsamic glaze is so good. I love it with the pesto. It's gonna be super filling too. I'm a fan, super good.
Number 4 is my kids' favorite, Tofu Nuggets.
You'll want to start by buying some extra firm tofu. If you buy super firm tofu, you don't have to press it, but with the extra firm, it does help if you take out all the extra water. I really love my little tofu press, and it is linked in the description below. So you'll open up the package and then we'll drain this water and we'll put the tofu in our tofu press. Super simple. And then wait just a couple minutes.
Now the secret for making tofu taste good on your very first time of actually making tofu is to not cube it in the typical cubed tofu pattern. If you tear it instead, it looks more like chicken nuggets and it allows the flavor to really seep into the tofu. Tofu is pretty bland on its own, so you need to add flavor to it. All right, I pressed it just for about 3 minutes. We'll dump out that excess liquid and then tear it up. Now this method works even better if you freeze the tofu, then thaw the tofu, then tear it, because it allows it to be more sponge-like. But as a mom of 6, I don't really take the time to do that extra step. My kids will eat it like this and it's just faster and easier. Now I'm about to teach you how to fish and not just give you a fish. I mean like a tofu fish. I want to show you how you can make this recipe without actually having to look up a recipe every time. So you can just whip up some tofu in 4 minutes flat. Some delicious tofu. Let's mix our dry ingredients together first. So this can be however you want to mix it, but a safe bet is to always do a teaspoon of garlic powder and a teaspoon of onion powder. These two are like the holy grail of spices. In pretty much every recipe, you can never go wrong with doing a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Now the next spices are optional. I'm just gonna add about a half a teaspoon of paprika. I'm even just gonna sprinkle it in there. Again, totally optional. If you don't like paprika, don't use it. And the other option is nutritional yeast. If you don't have this in your pantry, no worries, you can leave this out. It's not necessary. I just love the added flavor that nutritional yeast brings. So I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Again, you can always switch that up with how much or how little you like nutritional yeast. But what you don't want to skip out on is the cornstarch. If you're allergic to cornstarch, you can always use arrowroot powder or potato starch, or even tapioca starch. But 2 tablespoons is what you'll need. 1 and 2. So here's our dry ingredients. Before we put the dry ingredients on, we'll add the wet ingredients to the bowl of tofu and then top with the dry ingredients. For the wet ingredients, we'll use low sodium soy sauce and a dash of maple syrup. We'll start with the soy sauce. I do not have a specific amount. I just want you to cover it until everything is coated. So kind of mix it around. You don't want to see any white parts. So making sure that all the white parts have been covered with the soy sauce. That's how you know you have done enough. Now when it comes to the maple syrup, you don't want to add too much. So just the tiniest little dash. Think of 1/4 of the maple syrup as you added the soy sauce, ratio-wise. Woo, and then we do a little dance. Shake, shake, shake. Adding that little bit of sweetness of the maple syrup really does make a big difference. Just kind of balances out all of the salt. All right, now we add our dry ingredients. They're nice and mixed in on top of the wet ingredients. We'll shake, shake, shake. It's nice to have a big bowl where you have enough space to shake everything in. Add the rest of those. Yeah, it smells so good. Perfect. And now it is ready for the oven or the air fryer. Now you can use parchment paper on top of your pan if you'd want to go completely oil-free, but I do find that if I don't at least use parchment paper or spray some oil on this, they will stick a little bit, which is fine sometimes too. I'm okay with they sticking, but instead I'm just gonna spray into my sink this little thing. There we go. Just so it doesn't stick. The most minimal amount of oil, but it makes a big difference. Now we'll add the tofu to my pan. See, there is a little bit left over, but that's fine. And then you just want to make sure everything's evenly distributed. You can cook this in your oven. It will just take about 30 to 35 minutes, or the air fryer will save you a solid 15 minutes. It's gonna get so crunchy and so yummy. You can leave this as is. You do not have to spray any oil on top, but if you wanted to, again, option. I'm teaching you how to fish a tofu fish. But you could spray just a little bit of oil on top
just to give it that crispy texture, but again, not necessary. You can totally skip that step. All right, we're gonna start 400 degrees for 10 minutes and check on it from there. While that is cooking, we're gonna make some fry sauce. I grew up in Utah and fry sauce was the most delicious thing to dip in my chicken nuggets or my French fries, so we're gonna make it a vegan version. Now, you can skip this next step and just use vegan mayo. Any type of vegan mayo you find in your grocery store works. Otherwise, let's make some cashew cream. For a quick cashew cream, all we're doing is adding 2 parts of cashews and 1 part water. So this was a cup of cashews and a half a cup of water. Then we'll add the juice of half of a lemon. And now we will blend this up. If you do not have a high-speed blender, you will want to make sure that you've actually soaked your cashews first. But since I have a high-speed blender, I'm gonna go for it. Now it should be nice and creamy. If it is not, then you'll need to add a little bit more water. I'm just gonna top it off with just a dash of salt and then mix it up real quick, and then that's done. For the fry sauce, you really just eyeball it. So you'll place the ketchup. You want about half and half, honestly. So half ketchup and half cashew cream. If you like it more ketchup-y, then you can have more ketchup. It's gonna be a darker red color. If you like it more with the cream, then it's gonna be a lighter pink color. We'll just mix that together. It's super simple and super yummy. I also like to do cashew cream with some hot sauce. I'm gonna show you that too. And this is some beautiful fry sauce. Look at that. So good. Again, if you're used to it a little bit pinker, you can add a little bit more cashew cream. Yeah, perfect. Now, if you're more of a hot sauce person and less of a ketchup person, then here's the sauce for you. This one will be mostly cashew cream with as much hot sauce as you can handle. So it all depends on how spicy you like it. I'm using Frank's Red Hot Original Sauce. You can also use sriracha. It's actually really good in this too with some cashew cream. So yummy. Yum. Super yummy, creamy hot sauce. And now let's look at our super simple dips. Both of these are crazy simple and super yummy. Now let's check on our tofu. Okay, it was in at 400 degrees for 10 minutes and it is perfect. Oh my goodness, looks so yummy. Looks just like chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A. Now, because we sprayed them earlier, these do not stick at all. And if you want them even crunchier, you could leave them in for a couple more minutes. Just kind of depends on you. All right, it is time for the taste test. Yum, I'm so excited. I love the fry sauce. I'm gonna try it now with the hot sauce. I love the flavor of hot sauce. This is so good. The best way to eat tofu, honestly, by far. It's so fast, it's so simple. It's a yummy finger food, perfect for kids. I love it. Come down for chicken nuggets. There you go, guys.
Number 5 is a Tuscan Orzo casserole. This one is honestly one of my favorites. I love this one.
We'll preheat the oven to 400 degrees for this one. Just like with the other casserole, because I'm using a bouillon paste, I need to first boil the water, which is 2.5 cups of water, and then 2.5 teaspoons of the veggie paste. And then we'll make sure that that's all mixed up and incorporated. I'm always a little more generous on that veggie bouillon paste because I like flavor. I'm also going to add the spices to this mixture because while I'm waiting for it to heat up, I might as well save that time. So we will add 2 teaspoons of garlic powder and 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. Perfect. Now we're ready to dump and go for everything else. We'll start by dumping in half of a chopped red onion that's nice and diced. Spread that evenly. Then we'll add 12 ounces of Orzo. We want this at the bottom so the liquid will cover all of it. Then we'll add just a can of these black sliced ripe olives, just a little mini can. It's about half of a cup. And here's where a lot of the delicious flavor will come from. This is 8 ounces of chopped sun-dried tomatoes. I have a little bit of the oil coming through. It's not completely oil-free, but I know you can buy some. I just didn't have them at my grocery store. They all had oil in them. They add so much flavor. They really make this dish. After that, we're gonna dump in our liquid. So just that veggie broth, about 2.5 cups of veggie broth with our spices. Next, we're gonna add half a block of tofu. Now I found these at my grocery store and I love it that they're split up into 2. So you can just cut it in half and just use half of a block at once. We want this to be a complete meal, so we're gonna add in a protein source. And again, this could be white beans if you prefer or anything else, but I'm just gonna crumble this really finely. I want you to think of this like mozzarella cheese. How in any type of Italian dish you have some cheese chunks, it's gonna be kind of the same thing. And because the tofu doesn't have a ton of flavor, it's gonna absorb some of that veggie broth, and we'll add a little bit of salt on top as well. So just crumble that in. You don't even have to drain it. Just try to crumble it the best you can. I'm gonna sprinkle about half of a teaspoon of salt on top just for that tofu. And then we're gonna put this directly into the oven without putting aluminum foil on it to let the tofu harden a little bit, but everything cook underneath. 15 minutes at 400 degrees, and then we'll check on it. While the casserole is cooking, we're gonna quickly throw together a vegan Parmesan cheese recipe. So you'll add 1 cup of almond flour. This is what gives it that Parmesan cheese texture and look, is that almond flour. And then 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then we'll finish it off to give it that cheesy flavor with 1 big heaping tablespoon of nutritional yeast. And we'll mix all of that together, and this is how easy it is. That's it. This is your vegan Parmesan cheese. We'll sprinkle this on top of the casserole after we check on it and add our spinach. Okay, it has been 15 minutes. So we'll take out our Orzo pasta casserole, and it looks perfect. Okay, so now we just want to mix everything in. You can see the pasta already, it's getting a little hard on the edges. So mix everything in. This is such a great casserole if you're afraid of tofu, or other people are afraid of tofu. It's not that big of a deal. Just don't tell them that it's tofu. Let them believe it's cheese. All right, now we'll add in a big handful of spinach. We're gonna take a little bit to wilt, so just give it a little bit of time and it will wilt in there. Once you've worked that spinach in, it takes a little bit, just a couple of minutes, and then it starts to wilt down and it's nice and incorporated. Now it's time to sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on top. So we'll just take our parm and just do a nice, beautiful layer. And we'll put this back in for about another 15 minutes. The pasta just needs a little bit more time. We're gonna cover it this time so that all the moisture stays in so it doesn't dry out. And then we'll spend the last 5 minutes with the aluminum foil off just to brown our Parmesan cheese a little bit. Now before I put the aluminum foil back on, I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit of water to the corners because I noticed earlier that the corners were kind of getting crunchy and hard, and I don't want that to happen. So just the tiniest bit, not even like 1/4 cup of water. If you want, you can go all the way across. So now, if you feel like you have enough water in there already, you don't need to add that extra water. Now we'll put on the aluminum foil. Whew, still kind of hot. Again, you want it nice and snug, and we'll put it in for another 15 minutes. Okay, the Orzo casserole is done, but I want to take off the aluminum foil and broil it just for about 2 to 3 minutes, keeping a close eye on it. So I'll broil on high just for a couple of minutes to brown up that Parmesan cheese. All right, it's been about 5 minutes, and honestly, it doesn't brown that much, so, you know, just a little bit. You can tell the difference, just a little bit. If you wanted to skip this step, you totally could. It just adds a nice little crunchy crust. Yum, this honestly tastes so much better than it looks. I can't wait to dig into it. I am so excited about this one. This looks so yummy. Time to try the Orzo pasta, the sun-dried tomatoes. If you love sun-dried tomatoes, you will love this casserole. It's honestly one of my favorite, and you would never know there's tofu in it. In the future, we'll probably put even more tofu in it. You can't taste it. It's yummy. You can't even tell with all this Parmesan cheese, and it adds more protein. I think this is like the best one. This is so good. Yes, I'm sitting on the ground behind my couch to eat this right now. I don't even want to get up. Hey, real quick, have you signed up for my free meal guide? Just click on the link below, and I will send you 1 full week of vegan, whole food, plant-based recipes that even include a shopping list. So if you haven't already grabbed it, make sure you grab it by clicking on the link below. Number 6 is Eggy Muffins, the perfect dinner when you don't have a lot of time. You'll take 1 package of extra firm tofu, and you'll crumble the tofu and place it over the stove on medium heat. Then you'll add 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which is going to add an additional 8 grams of protein. Nutritional yeast is packed with a complete protein. It is great to add to your diet. Then you'll add 1/4 of a teaspoon of turmeric, just 1/4, not too much, or else it will taste like turmeric. And then 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Anytime you use turmeric, you want to also pair it with pepper to increase its absorption rate. So just a little bit of pepper. And then you'll finish it off with 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Now, if you have black salt, you're more than welcome to use it to give it that eggy flavor. Otherwise, I just use my regular light salt. You'll mix everything together and then let it cook for just about a minute or two while you toast the English muffins. This makes 4 servings, so you'll add about 1/4 of the mixture to your English muffin. And then you're welcome to add any hot sauce or any ketchup. I love hot sauce, so I add some hot sauce to that, and there you go. With the protein from the tofu, the nutritional yeast, and the English muffin, this is about 18 grams of protein for just a simple little tiny sandwich. That's really good. With the hot sauce, this is so yummy. If you don't know what to make for dinner tonight and you have a block of tofu and even just bread, then make this for dinner.
Number 7 is one of my go-tos, sheet pan tofu. My rule with sheet pan meals is the same as it was before going plant-based, and I try to add a protein, a veggie, and a starch. But instead of using chicken, I'll often use tofu or beans. I'll first set the oven for 350. I was finally able to buy super firm tofu at a grocery store I ran into, and I love it because you don't have to press the tofu. So we'll chop this up right now. Okay, this is how I flavor my tofu. I do not follow a recipe, and I want to train you not to have to follow a recipe either. All you need to do is grab some soy sauce, just kind of sprinkle it over. You want every single bit of tofu to be covered. There's really no wrong way to do this. Then you can do whatever spices you want, but my go-to spices are going to be onion powder, and I'll just sprinkle it over, and garlic powder. Generally, that should be enough salt, but if you do like it a little salty, you can add some salt as well. I always use the light salt. I also like to add in some nutritional yeast. Just brings in a little bit more depth of flavor. Here's the secret sauce. Maple syrup. This is all very salty, which is yummy, don't get me wrong. But when you add just a little bit of sweetness to this, it like brings up the flavor. It makes this so good. I add about half as much of maple syrup as you added soy sauce. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then you just mix everything around. Again, you want everything covered. So we want all of the pieces to have some of that nutritional yeast and the garlic powder, onion powder. But you can see every piece has some flavor on it. That's how you know you've done enough. That looks perfect. Now you can choose to marinate this, chop up your other veggies, and then go back to cook this, or just cook it right away. Now here's my pan. You can spray the pan. I'm not even gonna do that. I'm just gonna pour this over. You can see the juice will come too, and then shake everything around so it's all evenly distributed. Perfect. I'm gonna place this in my oven that has been preheated at 350. Now here's my trick with tofu. I don't want to have to cook it for half an hour. And tofu, you don't even really need to cook it. It's safe to eat right away. So this is what I do instead. Once the oven is set to 350, I put it in, then I turn it off and put it on broil. Broil on high. And that will speed up the process and make it crunchy. It will draw out the extra liquid. It'll make it go by so much faster. But make sure you check on it every 5 minutes or so. Now, just like I like to speed up the process of cooking tofu, I like to speed up the process of cooking potatoes. So I actually first cook them in the microwave. I'll put them on a plate, put them in the microwave while I'm chopping the other veggies, just to get them cooking a little bit faster. For about 10 minutes. Now the veggies, for me, when I open up the fridge, the ones that were about to go bad, as you can tell, were the asparagus. So I'm just pulling them out, chopping off the bottoms, and then we'll season them up. These are really close to going bad. Okay, it's time to flavor these up. So we'll first add some nutritional yeast. I just like the flavor. If you don't like it, that's fine. Salt, onion powder, garlic powder. Have you noticed it's the same thing? Salt, onion powder, garlic powder, nutritional yeast. I use it on everything. Perfect. And that's it. And then we'll kind of mix it all around. Super yummy. Looks so good. Awesome. And then let's put that in the oven. I'm gonna put these in my second oven and then take the tofu out of the first. Potatoes have been in the microwave for about 10 minutes, and now I'm gonna prep them, put them in the oven. They're softened but not quite cooked yet, so I use my trusty chopper. Trusty chopper to cut them down nice and small. And by the time I'm done with doing this, the tofu will be done and we can switch it out. Okay, now I have my potatoes. I'm gonna add some salt, some garlic powder,
onion powder, and then you can use anything else. I also, when I cook potatoes, like to use thyme, oregano, rosemary, as well as nutritional yeast. Here's the rosemary and thyme. I like that they're already kind of cooked, so it absorbs the flavor really easy. All right, and now let's take out the tofu. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I like tofu nice and crispy, and this is the fastest, easiest way to get crispy tofu without having to use oil or the air fryer. Now we'll put the potatoes in, and it's actually still on broil. We're gonna keep it on broil for a little bit and just check on it. Again, I wanna make dinner as fast as possible. Okay, everything is now done. And my house smells amazing. It smells like rosemary. Now I have a big family, so I have lots of sheet pans for this sheet pan meal. But as you can tell, this should feed all of us. These potatoes are awesome. My kids will love them with ketchup.
Number 8 is Tofu Alfredo. We all love this sauce,
And we literally make it a couple times a week. Let's start by boiling some whole wheat pasta. Any type of pasta works. While that's boiling, let's make the sauce. The cool thing about this recipe is any type of tofu works. I've tried them all. You can use silken tofu, you can use soft tofu, or an extra firm tofu. It all works. So I'm going to use this extra firm tofu, and we just add it to a blender. And I've already rinsed most of it. Then you'll add 2 cloves garlic. Now I actually don't have any garlic in my house right now, so I'm using some garlic powder. Still works. Here's how it tastes so good is the 2 teaspoons of veggie bouillon paste. You can also just use veggie bouillon cubes, but this is 2 teaspoons. You can get it from Walmart or from Costco. Now to help thicken up this sauce, it calls for 2 tablespoons of nuts, usually raw cashews. I'm gonna use Brazil nuts today just because the selenium is so good for my kids and it's easier, I just have them on hand, but you can use any type of nuts just to kind of thicken that up. Then we'll add 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast. This is the non-dairy cheese flavor that we're using. And then let's add the spices, which makes this so good. So 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, 1/2 teaspoon of marjoram, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and then 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. This is what makes it so yummy. Just the depth of flavor is incredible. We'll finish this off with a teaspoon of salt, and then we'll take a cup of water from this pasta. Now you can also use a cup of unsweetened almond milk instead. Either one works. The nice thing about using the pasta water is that the sauce will be nice and warm. All right, let's blend it up. Perfect and creamy. Time to drain the pasta. Then we add the sauce. Now you can add all of it, you can save some of it for later, it just depends on you. Usually this sauce is good for even 2 packages of noodles. I like it really saucy, so I'll just use 1 package. This sauce is also awesome on top of potatoes, so sometimes I will save, I'll reserve some of the sauce for some potatoes later on. It is so good, look at that, so yummy. Now I love that my kids love this dish because tofu is a great source of protein and calcium and iron. But even better if you can pair your tofu dishes with some vitamin C so that your body can absorb the calcium and the iron a lot easier. So make sure to add some fruit and add some veggies to this pasta and enjoy. It's so good.
For number 9, we have crispy tofu crumbles.
If you've never tried making tofu before, I always suggest making crumbled tofu first before you make the squared tofu. It's super simple and super yummy. Let me show you how. You'll want to use firm or extra firm tofu for this. This is extra firm, which is great because then it's just easy to crumble it up. You don't want it to turn into, like silken tofu will turn into a cream if you crumble, so you want it to be firm. This should resemble ground beef at the end. Now tofu has no flavor, so we need to add in the flavor. So I like to add a tablespoon of garlic powder, a tablespoon of onion powder, and then 1/4 cup of soy sauce, which is actually just 4 tablespoons if you didn't know that. Then to balance out all that sauce, I like to add about a tablespoon of maple syrup as well, if your kids didn't use it all for breakfast. We'll mix all of that together. It's nice and even. Next, we'll spread out all of this tofu onto my air fryer, nice and evenly. And then we want to cook it until it's crispy. So if you have it in the oven, it's gonna be about 425. In the air fryer, I'm gonna cook it at 400 for 10 minutes and then we'll check on it. All right, the tofu is ready. Look at that, perfect. Perfect, even crunchy on the sides there, that's awesome. Tofu kind of tastes like a chicken nugget. There we go. Look how beautiful that is.
For number 10, we have BBQ Shredded Tofu that you can use for pizza or even haystacks.
There's a vegan joke, like, what do I use my steak knife for? Oh, for opening tofu packages. And I get it because they're actually kind of a pain to open. Just shred it, just like you would a block of cheese. Okay, you can spray your pan if you want to first, just so the tofu doesn't get too sticky. So this is where you've got to add the flavor. I am using Stubbs reduced sugar barbecue sauce. Now I'll mix in all of that barbecue sauce. I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees. So I'll go ahead, we'll cook that for about 20 minutes. For the haystacks, we'll also be grilling up some broccoli and cooking some sweet potatoes. And then on top of all that, we'll put some avocado. It's delicious with the tofu and the broccoli and the sweet potatoes and the avocado. Again, you may want to spray your pan. Let's season with onion powder to sprinkle it, some garlic powder, and some salt. I feel like these are the 3 go-tos whenever I'm doing potatoes. We'll add some thyme. Isn't it about time? We'll put that in the oven. Again, that 400 degrees oven for at least 20 minutes as well. Now let's prep the broccoli. So similar pattern, let's spray the pan. Garlic powder. Salt, onion powder. And then because broccoli tends to get dry, just the tiniest bit of oil. I also might add a little bit more salt because, you know, broccoli. We'll put that in the oven with the potatoes. I really like it crispy. Tastes a little better. So I want to move the stuff on the side into the center and the stuff that was in the center onto the side so everything can get crispy. If you have an air fryer, I mean, amazing. Chewy, crispy. It's the best part about tofu. It's safe to eat right out of the package. While the sweet potatoes and broccoli are cooking, I'm going to pull out some of that barbecue tofu, which looks just like chicken, and make a barbecue tofu pizza, just made with a single whole wheat wrap. So let me show you, it's really easy and delicious. It won't take much. No one loves a ton of onions to overpower everything. Since I'm already waiting for everything in my oven to cook and my oven is full, I'm going to toast the tortilla over the stove. You can see how this is firm. Whew, nice and toasted. Next, I want to cook my mushrooms, and I'm gonna add some water to steam these. Broccoli is done. Look at that perfection. And the tofu is done. Perfect. It shrinks in size, it's nice and crispy, perfect. So before we do the haystacks, let's quickly make this barbecue pizza that you can see that the tortilla is perfect. Nice and crispy. And then we'll add just enough tofu. It's not chicken, it's been some red onions, mushrooms, and then some cilantro. Now, of course, what's going to make this actually taste good is adding more barbecue sauce. We have everything ready to put together the barbecue tofu haystacks. So let's do the sweet potatoes first, kind of make a pile. Right. Then you have your broccoli. And after the broccoli comes the delicious tofu. And after the tofu, this is where it gets good, is avocados. So I'll just pull in some slices of avocado on each one. And then, of course, we need a little bit more barbecue sauce to finish it off. And there are your barbecue tofu haystacks.
If you loved these 10 tofu dinner recipes, I know you'll absolutely love my other tofu videos where I show you how to make yummy desserts with tofu. So make sure to check those out as well.